On to our featured attractions. We say happy birthday, my bad, to listener Nicole Loftus with a review of Carrie and The Rage, Carrie 2. So we'll start with the original Carrie from 1976. Carrie White, a shy, friendless teenager who is sheltered by her domineering religious mother, unleashes her telekinetic powers after being humiliated by her classmates at her senior prom. Director is Brian De Palma, also known for Blowout and Phantom of the Paradise. Really?
Yeah.
And
Beef.
writer is Lawrence D. Cohen, also known for It and the Tommyknockers.
Okay.
A big Stephen King fan, I take it.
Sounds that way.
When Sissy Spacek was preparing her for her character, she isolated herself from the rest of the ensemble, decorating her dressing room with heavy religious iconography, and studied Gustave Dore's Illustrated Bible. She studied the body. I don't know. I probably fucked that name up. My bad. She studied the body language of people being stoned for their sins, starting or ending every scene in one of those positions.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. That's cool.
That is interesting. Okay.
While speaking at a book event in Fort Myers, Florida in 2010, Stephen King recalled that he was paid just $2,500 for the movie rights to Carrie, which may seem like a pittance, but he has no regrets. I was fortunate to have that happen to my first book, King said.
Yeah. We actually got about halfway through writing the book and threw it in the trash, and his wife Tabitha pulled it out of the trash and said, "You need to finish this." A little bit of trivia on the book. Okay. So it almost never was.
It was almost kind of written like a movie, although I'd never actually read the book. So
yeah, it's pretty close, man. It's
the
pretty spot on.
Storyline works for the movie, at least, assuming it's story accurate. Lance, you want to start us off on Carrie?
Yeah, seen this one several times. Not my favorite Stephen King adaptation, but it's up there. It's probably like in the top 5 for sure. And there's a lot of symbolism in this movie, not just the religious symbolism, like, you know, all the prayer candles and then the room full of candles in the last scene. Hell, you know, I'd actually, on this rewatch, I'd kind of almost forgotten the final scenes, like with her and her mom, with all the knives and flying and stuff like that after the prom. Like, I just remembered the big ending part being the prom, and then I kind of, you know, remembered that last part. But the movie, it like starts out with blood, and I don't know if it has anything to do with, you know, the blood of Christ or the body of Christ or any of that. I don't know how deep Stephen King meant to go there. He definitely made it clear that he's not a huge fan of organized religion gone wrong. He puts that in all of his books, so that's something you can
I don't know how
super
duper familiar he is with Christianity.
Yeah, well, I mean, think of all the characters like Mrs. Carmody from The Mist. You know, he's always got one religious nut, right? A religious zealot, Under the Dome, what have you. Anyway, but yeah, the movie starts with blood and kind of ends with a lot of blood, and I don't know if it had to do with that so much as maybe just femininity and, you know, the fact that women bleed to, you know, their menstrual cycle every month. They were throwing tampons at her.
I just don't trust anything bleeds for 7 days and doesn't die.
Plug it up. You know. Plug it up.
Yeah, and that was pretty brutal. But one thing I really caught more on this one was like, I wouldn't call it a horror comedy, but there was definitely a lot of humor in those scenes where like the coach was punishing the students and like the music was da 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 da
or
da 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 da. They'd pick up and they were doing the push-ups.
The scene where they're getting the tuxedos.
Yeah, the tuxedo scene. That was a good one. Oh, and the pig, where they're going to get the pig's blood with John Travolta, hey, you know. And,
don't call me stupid, hey.
Hey, come on.
Yeah, it was a lot of good characters in this one, but to me they were kind of like believable because they were all sort of bullies, but some of them sort of had some redeeming qualities. PJ Souls was a bitch. She was like, you could see her face during the final scene when she just pointed and just started laughing at Carrie, like didn't really care about it. And she was probably the meanest one, I guess, at heart, even though others did some meaner things than that.
A lot of them had it coming.
That's true. That's true. But then there were a lot that got caught in the crossfire too, right?
Yeah.
And then you got that embarrassing scene, right, where they're in the class and they're talking about was it Romeo and Juliet they were talking about? I think.
I think so.
Okay, and the teacher's kind of making fun of Carrie. He's like, "Oh, it's such a beautiful thing." It's like everybody's out to get this poor girl because she's so mousy and meek, and I guess that kind of falls into like what you were saying about her, always starting and ending every scene in a position of someone who's being religiously stoned or persecuted. So yeah, movie had a lot to say about persecution. It was a little bit over the top, but then again, we were like that. I mean, I went to high school like in the 80s, and this was a little bit before that, but we were fucking bullies, man, and we had cliques, right? Like I was usually one of the nerd group or the heads group, which is the guys that smoked weed like behind the building and stuff like that. But we would sometimes do things like play Dungeons and Dragons in the cafeteria. And then you had your jock group, and then of course you had the goths and the punk rockers and all that. So you could see that cliquishness in some of the scenes where they were having lunch outside and stuff like that. But no, I think it's a really good movie, start to finish. There's a lot of great acting in this. The characters are. We might get into a movie after this where I think it gets a little off the rails with how the characters act, but at least in this one there was some believability in everybody, and I could kind of understand the motivations and who doesn't love that final prom scene and just how it drags on and on and on, and her locking the doors on everybody and people burning alive and shit like that, and just pretty brutal. And then yeah, that final scene with her and her mom where she finally let her mom have it by letting all the knives fly was pretty amazing, even though in all fairness her mom did stab her first. But yeah, good movie, man. Has a lot of messages in it. It stands the test of time.
With your high school experience, do you feel like that's more of a caricature or that's like actually how it was?
I think that the next movie we're going to review is going to have a lot of caricatures in it.
Yeah.
I think this one was maybe a little bit more spot on. I don't know.
Okay.
Just in my experience.
Not in my high school. It was nothing like either one of these movies.
You've told us. Yeah. You've told us that before, Brian. You've told us that. How was your high school different, man?
I mean, there was bullying going around, but it wasn't to the extent of neither one of these movies.
Right. Sure. Well, it was like they got to make the movie.
Shit. They made fun of the weird kid for a minute.
Yeah, there you go, and then moved on, right?
Yeah. Well, because I don't know. I mean, I guess we sort of had like cliques in high school, but like I was sort of friends with everybody, so
yeah.
I didn't really belong to any of them.
Right.
And I felt like the high school movies were maybe more caricatured.
Yeah,
but it's been
like
such a trope.
And stuff
but it's
like
been
that.
such a trope for such a long time. I'm
Candles.
like, well, maybe high school in the 70s and 80s was a little different.
Yeah. And you got to remember, this movie was 76, so this was way before I was in high school. So, hell, I can't believe this movie's that old. I didn't remember it being from the 70s for some reason. I thought it was like, kind of more of an early 80s movie. So it definitely stands up in that respect.
That's a good point, actually. It doesn't seem like it's because you think of something like The Exorcist, which is a classic, and you know that it was made in the 70s or even when was it? 60s?
73.
73. Okay. But it's got that feel to it. And this one,
sure, Rosemary's
even though
Baby.
I guess it sort of has a 70s feel to it, can almost just sort of transcend decades.
I would agree. Yeah. It kind of had that feel to it.
Huh. Brian, what'd you think?
Classic movie, again, another movie we're reviewing where it's the classic tale of fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
A movie full of horrible, horrible people.
Picked the wrong motherfucking one.
Even the principal doesn't even care to even get her name right.
Oh yeah, Cassie.
Then you got John Travolta.
Yeah.
Doesn't like to be called dumb, so he smacks the shit out of his girlfriend.
'Cause
Oh
he's
yeah.
dumb.
Right.
And how sadistic? What's the actress's name? Nancy Allen, setting the
Uh-huh.
whole thing up.
Sure.
Even her reaction to John Travolta killing the pig.
Mm-hmm.
So like bloodthirsty. Another standout character is Piper Laurie as Mrs. White, because she was a
Mhm.
fucking nutcase.
Yeah.
I can
Great,
see your dirty pillows.
great role though.
Yeah.
She's the one that made this movie.
Yeah,
And
I
how
can't disagree with
terrifying
that.
was that portrayal of Jesus? The one on her
Yeah.
little cross in her closet with the light up eyes.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Yeah. But a lot of iconic scenes, a lot of iconic lines. They're all gonna laugh at you. I've heard they
Mhm.
used sampled in songs and stuff like that.
hmm
Uh,
Hell, it
great
was in the next
cast.
movie.
Yeah. William Cat, Greatest American Hero. I didn't like that he got took out by a bucket.
Yeah.
Because apparently he's not knocked out. He's killed by the bucket, an empty
No,
bucket.
come on.
They're
What?
dangerous.
I guess I never saw him again after that. Now that you mention it, shit.
Well, he didn't have time to wake up. The high school burned
Right.
down. So, but yeah, this is not my favorite Stephen King movie, but I think it's one of the more iconic ones because everybody knows the prom scene, the image of
Oh,
her
yeah.
with the pig's blood all over her.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and even walking down the street afterwards, I think it's pretty
Mhm.
cool where she's all covered in blood.
yeah, why
Yeah.
were they still at the school if they drove away? Because I know
That's a
she
good
didn't
point.
speed walk to where they was and cause them to crash.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that part.
Rewatching it, it is a bummer that the gym teacher died because she's the one
Mhm.
that had her back, but I guess she was just a
Yeah.
casualty of what was going on.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
Back in the
trapped in a
days when
burning
you could-
building, you know.
Back in the days when you could slap a student.
when you're
Right.
committing mass murder, it's hard to distinguish.
Yep.
Well, in her mind, everybody was laughing at her, even
Yeah.
though you could tell
Yes.
that person might not have been laughing. That's just what was in her mind.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the school shooter story before there were school shooters.
Yeah.
That's a good point, man. I hadn't looked at it that way. And then like that crazy, kaleidoscope type look with all the different faces, even the people that were straight faced or shocked, when they
Mhm.
get inside that kaleidoscope that she's looking through from her brain, they're all like just laughing.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, that's how she's perceiving it. So yeah, this could be like the first school shooter story,
And
man. I don't know.
It's sort of what begets more school shooters, I mean, because there's always going to be people who feel like everybody's after them.
Mm-hmm. Super paranoid.
Yeah, I think it's definitely pretty iconic. One thing I got to say is they're not after you. Chill out.
Right.
You're gonna run into assholes. That happens, man. You gotta fucking deal with it.
Part of life.
Yeah. Don't fucking murder people. But no, I think this is definitely a classic story with a lot of iconography, and it works as one of Stephen King's best, I think. Especially considering it was his first book, and I guess
Mhm.
it was the first movie adaptation from his.
I'm sure it was, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
would
The
so.
Shining was pretty long time ago, but not that long ago.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of classic horror. It gives you a really classic story of somebody who's just been mistreated so long that they can't take it anymore and they explode. and she just
Literally.
happens to have psychic powers.
Right.
So
Knocking over the ashtray in the counselor's room.
Yeah.
All the teachers walk around smoking cigarettes.
Which, when we get to
70s,
the
man.
second movie, I feel like they handle that situation a lot more better.
Eloquently, or yeah.
Because this one, she moves shit with her mind, and people see that it
Right.
flips, and they're just
Mhm.
disregarding what they've seen.
Right.
Right.
Oh, maybe it was just too close to the edge of the table. Yeah, that's why it flipped in the air. It fell.
Yeah,
It was
sure,
the wind.
sure.
That's why it hit you in the face.
Inside a building.
But yeah, it's not my favorite. I think it's on the must-watch list of horror movies. But it's not. It's more towards the bottom of that list, I think.
Okay.
Great, classic, not my favorite. I didn't hate it. All right, scores. Lance, what do you think?
8 on 10. 8 on 10. Good movie.
Okay. Brian?
I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go 9. I think it's a classic.
Oh wow.
Damn.
There's not too much I can really say bad about it. So easy 9 on 10.
Better than Maximum Overdrive, Brian? Just different, right?
Production wise, yes.
Yeah.
Overall entertainment, no.
Right.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
It's more of a classic horror movie for sure than a lot of Stephen King stuff. I'm gonna go 7.5 on this one, I think.
Okay. We're all around the same
Yeah,
spot.
no, I mean it's definitely really good. I kind of want to give it more. It's just it's not my favorite. It's maybe it's just because it's been so overdone at this point.
I like
Carrie,
this more stricter scoring from you these past couple
I
weeks.
know, right?
Yeah, we've got more of that.
But I mean, Carrie has been around my entire life, and so this story has always been there, and it's always been sort of stolen from. And so maybe it just seems like a trope, and maybe it's not.
Maybe it was the original.
Maybe it was the original.
Okay.
So maybe it deserves more than that, but I'm going to give it a 7.5.
What do you guys predict Nez's score would be?
10.
Yeah,
I think so.
76, hella good.
I think so.